All right, can everybody hear me? All right, good. Good, good, good.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. We got about 10 people on. So I think everybody knows why we're here. We had already set this call up last month. We set this date and we didn't know that all the stuff that happened was gonna happen the way it happened. And so of course, we have to talk about it because it has an impact on all of us. The folks that are on this call and the folks that are going to be listening and to all of our coworkers. Today at our general membership meeting, we talked about it extensively about the importance of not just this presidential election, but what it means for our ability to fight back against our employers. Because you make no mistake, your employer, they had a list of things that they checked off too in their box in their polls. And a lot of those issues that they checked off, they wanted to make sure that they can continue to dominate the workforce, dominate our members. None of our employers wants us to have a contract, collective bargaining rights, a pension, the right to strike. They don't want us to have those things. And that's how they're going to vote on November the 5th. So as the labor movement and true trade unionists, we're going to have to make sure that we stop that from happening. And like I explained to my members today, I know we do have some Trump supporters, and that's fine. That's the beauty of being in America. You have democracy. You can love who you want, vote for who you want, worship who you want, and whatever you want to do, you could do that. But when it comes to these issues, I don't think labor has we can't be divided on these issues of fighting against the employer, having the right to strike. We have to put these people in office that are going to make sure they do what we need them to do. Because everybody on this call knows what's going to happen if the orange man gets back in office. It's not going to be good for us, especially people of color, trade unionists. We're going to be the ones really hurting, and we had to do everything in our power to make sure that that does not happen. It was a debacle of what happened this past week at the IBT that our leadership at the highest levels failed to endorse your pension. They failed to endorse the right to strike. They failed to endorse, someone who's going to fight right to work. They failed to endorse someone who's going to walk the picket line with you. They failed to endorse having a pro-national labor relations board. They failed to do those things. Now, I don't know why they didn't endorse her because when they left Washington, a lot of them went home and they started endorsing her. I don't understand that. That makes no sense to me at all. What message are you sending to the rank and file when you do stuff like that? You're there at the headquarters. Why not endorse her? Because you remember last time what we talked about. If you are afraid of the leader, you got the wrong leader. So if those folks were afraid, then there's some changes need to be made. There's no way you can tell me that all those things that we listed, pension, right to strike, collective bargaining, right to work, if that is not your top priority as a union member, a union leader, then what are you doing? I don't understand it. I don't know, what the issue is. It's mind-boggling to me. So, but we did have a few brave folks there. John Palmer, he's on the call. He was one of them. Then Avril Thompson, he was there, and I believe was another GEB member. Was it Thor Johnson? I believe he was the next one. So a shout out and kudos to those folks, those brothers who stood up to whatever it is that folks are afraid of up there at the IBT. I have no idea because you were elected. It's not like the general president can take you out of your position. I don't get it. Now, if you were appointed to a position, I almost understand why you would, do certain things because fear, getting that extra check. I mean, I get it. Would I do it? No. But for the folks who were elected and still chose that route, that's a big problem for me and a big problem for a lot of rank and file members because we look to you guys for leadership. And so when you're there at the IBT and you don't endorse, but then you come home and then you start endorsing, that sends a very, very bad message to the membership. So, Chris,
Well,
I gotta turn it over to you, man. I know you got a lot to say about this issue.
so this went south, and we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Uh, when you invite the candidates to come and visit and be interviewed at the Marble Palace, that should be a fresh interview, right? The orange one comes, Cornel West comes, whoever chooses to come and be interviewed. The question is, why did you have to go to Mar-a-Lago once, for sure? And what was that discussion that took place in Mar-a-Lago where folks go to bow down? No one goes to Mar-a-Lago to stand up. And so I've been pondering, why would you go to Mar-a-Lago? Why would you have to go by yourself? No witnesses, no, you know. So coming from, because that kind of dabbled into street life for a while, so you kind of understand when and why you do things
Right.
that require that no witnesses be available. And so I understand it very well. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to say it out loud right now, but maybe you could understand this, that he was made to go there. Some entity required him to go and make that trek to Mar-a-Lago and to prostrate yourself before the orange one. And let me just say this, because people talk about black people and what have you like that. The election of the Confederate Party is not only going to be a setback to the working class, and people have to understand this. Malcolm X, and I'm paraphrasing, said back in the 60s, because he died in the 60s, that the final confrontation was going to not be between black and white. It was going to be between the oppressor and the oppressed. And the oppressor comes in a rainbow of colors and sexual orientations. So people like Peter Thiel, who is a supporter of the oligarchy being totally in control, right? So people have to understand, if you took Trump out of the equation, it does not exist. Let's put Trump out there. Look at the people who wrote Project 2025, right? Look at the Bannon, what's his name? Something Bannon, he's going to jail now. Look at the people, Miller, right? These people are fascist-minded people. They have been that way for years. They are racist. They are sexist. They are anti-woman, anti-anything that is not white, male, Protestant, Anglo-Saxon. I'm not sure how they figure out the Anglo-Saxon part. So we are talking about someone and an organization that chose to abandon ship in the middle of a storm, because this is a storm for the working class.
Yeah.
This is an administration that passed the Butch-Lewis Act, an act that went before Donald Trump, and he refused to sign it, right? And so they came out and they talked about the fact that the how he treated the railroad workers. I'm mildly surprised, but it says that they can see beyond one issue. That the Rail Conference, the Teamsters Rail Conference, endorsed Kamala.
Yeah.
Now, I held a demonstration, not just myself, D12, CBTU. We had a big rally in front of Grand Central, and shout out to SWAPA, which is the Southwest Airlines Pilots Association, because they came out in uniform. I mean, you're talking about uh, you don't consider them to be people that would be just marching around the picket line. And they came to the picket line to march in solidarity with these rail workers. And when this was going on, I was struck by the fact that I did not hear the vitriol coming from the general president in solidarity with the rail workers that I hear him talk about when it comes to UPS. And the whole time it struck me funny that I ain't hearing that leadership, because you really the leaders of these people. And the message should have gone out that regardless of what Congress did or the Supreme Court did, we were not going to work without sick days and a minimum amount of sick days. So to me, and we have to understand this because we grown-ups, the president has to look at an economy that he's somewhat responsible for, right? And if you have this rail strike, you're going to derail everything I've been trying to do, right? So that's his position, right? That position is juxtaposed against the workers' position, which is a demand for these 6 days, right?
Right.
And if someone had simply stood up and says, Mr. President, I fully comprehend your position. You have a whole country to run. I got you. But in the winter, -14, when there's a pull apart, when the signal system is down, when there's a derailment, when anything goes wrong, I have to go out there and fix it with 0 sick days, whether it's raining, storming, hail, whatever. My kids get sick, anything that's happening, right? And they failed to provide them with sick days. Now, they did a little bit of a scam move, which is to say, well, the railroad is a federal contractor and as such are required to give its workers 5 sick days. But that's not a contractual obligation. That comes from a law that was passed by Obama requiring federal contractors to give those sick days. And I did not see the battle that was put up by this international in support of its rail division. So I don't, and I don't understand, right? You are still the leader. Win, lose, we'll win some, we lose some, whatever. You still have to ask the question, what is in the best interest of the working class? Is it the Confederate Party or the Democratic Party? That's the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have an obligation to give an answer. And failure to give an answer means that you are doing a favor to someone else. Because the relationship with Trump actually goes back to Jimmy Hoffa. When Jimmy Hoffa and the national building trades, all the big international building trades guys, had a meeting with Trump, right? You know what they came away with? Nothing. Nothing. Not a new highway, not a new building, not a new bathroom, nothing. They got nothing but a photo op. All right, well, he got the photo op.
Mm-hmm.
They got nothing. And so for you to fall into this trick bag a second time does not make sense, right? And those individuals that chose to vote in, I mean, it's not endorse, and then run back home and endorse. If you're afraid of
Strange.
either,
Strange. Strange.
that's strange.
Brother John, I gotta ask you if you can go in some detail. How was Kamala? How was she at this meeting? I mean, how was the conversation between her and the GEB and the ranking and file, and how was she there?
Well, first and foremost, I found her to be, and I posted this on, I don't know how many of y'all are on Teamsters Union Link, T Union Link now because they had to get rid of their name because they came after them with the IBT lawyers, which happened to be Union Busters, Nixon Peabody,
Mhm.
for using that name, even though everyone else has got it in their. But anyway, long story short, she was, people sometimes you just get a sense about who they are. She was warm, she was kind. When she walked past me, uh, initially I got to talk to her a couple of times. The first time, I told her, I said, look, we got a race in Texas for Senate, and I was referring to Ted Cruz. Colin Allred, I've been working to help move Colin Allred's cause, because we got close with Beto O'Rourke a few years ago, and Colin's a spectacular candidate, has a lot going for him, so I told her, I said, we're going to work on getting you a senator out of Texas, and she was really warm about it. She said, hey, how close are the polls? And I said, well, in some polls, he's as close as 2 points. And if you look at a state like Texas, it really has almost a majority minority population. Where I live absolutely has a majority minority population. I proudly live in a brown city, where we all marry each other and have kids, and we're all mutts like me. My mother's French. We're all mutts from different places, but you know, she was very warm and engaging. Now, as to the conversations, baby, I'm on a call. So I'm sorry, I'm on vacation. I wish I had a grandson to interrupt me. But anyway, hey, no, I'm on a call. I'm sorry. I'm yelling at my wife. She's going to beat me. As to the conversations we had, there were a couple of tense moments. Not, the e-board tried to tell me I used the term contentious in the article that landed in the Times. That's not true. But there were two moments where O'Brien was clearly not telling the truth. And I thought Kamala was magnificent. One of them was the rail strike. He suggested that the White House sent those people back to work. And she just looked at him and said,
That's not.
Congress did that. The second one was a long running sort of ego thing that Sean has, which is basically him, during the UPS negotiations, calling the White House and saying, we want y'all to stay out of this, not to involve yourself in our negotiations or a potential strike. Now, her answer to that was, and we didn't. It was just,
That's
it
true.
was classic. And I want to talk a little bit to that too. I've been a Teamster for a long time. I've been an organizer for a long time. The Railway Labor Act is different. And, Chris, you alluded to that. Um, as much as we need a more perfect system that represents workers, let's be real. No candidate's going to guarantee you they're not going to send the rail unions or airlines back to work.
That's true.
And it's not a matter of we're not there. It's a matter of the economy and somebody uh, doing what they're going to do to keep the economy moving, if they're in office. I'm not justifying it. I'm just talking from a perspective of
That's
Yeah,
of
there's facts. Yeah, yeah.
fact. And,
Right.
and so that was very, very, very interesting, on that. And it was tense. And the other thing that really stood out to me, and Sean, you could tell he was displeased, but man, she sort of set him straight, right? I mean, she didn't have to say a lot. She set him straight. So what happened behind that, was the interviewing after she was good throughout the whole presentation. She referred to the PRO Act many times, which for those of us that are organizers, is really important because what the PRO Act allows us to do is organize in a manner where we don't have union busters involved, um, and more importantly, get a contract. Any of y'all have been around? No, it's one thing to win an election. It's another thing to actually get a labor agreement. With the PRO Act, they would be forced to bargain a contract, or we'd bring in an arbitrator. So that would be powerful for us. And there's some warehouse language that we're talking about that would help us with Amazon. So she was on that. She committed to that. Trump never committed to that. And I want to make a further point. Those 8 rank and file Teamsters, if this was really a rank and file process, right? That sat in there and got this information that was handed out to all of us that broke down the pros and cons of all these
Hmm.
candidates. Well, guess what? The pros and cons of Donald Trump versus any candidate we talked to were on a scale is a bowling ball and a feather. There's no comparison about what Donald Trump would do to us. So these members were interviewed, right? And polled basically. All 8 of them overwhelmingly supported Trump, not Trump, excuse me, supported
Kamala.
Kamala Harris.
Hmm.
So then there was a couple of questions to a couple of people from Sean that sort of pushed them the other direction. One of them was about the railway uh, issue, and he told the questioner that, well, she never answered your question. She did. Um, and the other one was to another member about the the Republicans in his bargaining unit. And that member was very clear about that unit was heavily Republican, but that they were also the most overpaid, sort of pampered group in our union, right? And that bit about the airline pilots was interesting, Chris, because typically we think of people making a lot of money doing that, but it was interesting. I'm not the brightest guy, um, but when somebody's trying to move a narrative, and he's been moving a narrative for his benefit. As to the vote, um, I was shocked because after the Biden, probably shouldn't have been, right. After the Biden discussion, we went around the room and everybody but Sean and Fred were basically, we need to do this now, sooner rather than later. After this discussion, of course, Sean made it known he thought we should respect these polls, which, by the way, if we look at these polls, what happened with the straw polls, which are probably the most accurate of these polls, we don't have any means testing on how these other polls were done. If we look at these polls, we went in less than 8 weeks, we went from a poll that showed Trump at 37% and Biden at 44. We turned that completely upside down, and all of a sudden we have a poll that has Trump at 60%. No method testing, no and as someone who walks amongst our members and talks to our members, I have a hard time getting that. I mean, there are certain groups, yes, that are Trumpers, right? But for the most part, I think those initial numbers in the straw poll were accurate. I think y'all have seen this before, right? We do we vote a contract, and then it gets voted down. The international doesn't like it. Well, what do? They send you back to vote it at the local. Keep
Right.
voting until you get it right. There was a narrative, and I'm just going to say what I think. I think the deal was cut in Mar-a-Lago. I
Yes,
think I think the deal
that's
was
correct.
very simple. I can't get you an endorsement based on, but I tell you what I can do for you. I can
Mm.
get you a no endorsement. And I'm going to go a step further. You asked that I go into detail, and I hope I get much love from the GEB after these comments, because not a I'll give the 3 credit for standing up.
Yeah.
I'll give those 3 folks. The rest of them showed no courage whatsoever, and for them, at the end of the meeting, there was a question by one of the VPs. Are we released to do what we want to in our locals and joint councils? And the answer was yes. For them to walk out the door and within minutes um, start endorsing Harris, number one, the damage is done.
Yeah, it's already done.
Number two, um, this was planned. This was laid out. This
Yes.
was this was structured. And um, I if I seem like I'm upset, I really am, Be, because this is serious. It's beyond just labor.
Yeah.
The man has traded in national secrets. He stored them at his home by a toilet. Had all kinds of horrible people from other countries through his building at the time. Who the hell knows who's got this stuff now? So it's about people of color. It's about people choosing who they want to love. All these things affect our members. And to those that want to suggest that somehow that we have to be apolitical and just talk about issues that affect labor, I'm sorry, these issues do affect labor. They because we fit all those, those different
Right.
sizes. We are all different, and the threat that this man poses to all of us beyond just a union is existential. And I guess I've ranted a little bit, but
No,
No,
uh,
that's all
no,
right. No, that's
I
fine.
feel
had to
strongly
be
about it.
said. Had to
Right.
be said.
So I gotta ask this question about these polls. Now, there was the poll, the phone bank poll. That's the one that kind of took me for a loop. That's the one where they said that Trump had got 61% and Kamala had got like 38%. And I gotta ask this question because I didn't ask so many people. I don't ask my members and I asked folks on both coasts, and I got the same exact answer. Did anybody on this call, this Zoom call, get a call from the IBT about this whole phone bank call?
Let me go a step further on what you just said. This narrative needs to be laid out there. The number of people that were polled, and they said it was late research, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, were less than 1,000, 900 and some change.
Come on, man.
Yeah, and
What?
anybody, I know some people that have been around polling. Anybody will tell you that that's a really weak sample size.
Right.
And they allege that the QR, that's an even more questionable
Yeah.
QR code. They allege that there was 40,000 voting in that. I would say that the most accurate poll was when you actually saw people show up and they sat in front of you.
Yeah.
That's my position on that. I'm sorry, I felt it was important to lay that narrative out for you guys.
Right, because everybody that's on here that put in the chat, man, nobody on this call got that phone bank call. So that's why I asked the question, like, who got the call? Who did you target?
So I think John really summarized it to the end.
Mm-hmm.
The question was, and I don't think it's to his benefit. He might benefit from it. Uh, but like I said, I think he was sent there by some external force. Uh, and he might get some minimal reward if you assume he's still around. But um, the intent was they knew they couldn't get the endorsement. The Confederates knew that they had not earned that endorsement. And so the no endorsement for anyone was a significant victory. So if you couple that with my appearance at the Confederate convention,
Mhm.
that and and I tell people, take Trump out of the picture completely. Tell me who in the Confederate Party, uh, J.D. Vance, uh, Mitch McConnell, tell me who in this party has ever said one word, taken one act in solidarity with the working class. Then says zero. So why is there even a conversation about endorsing anybody that's in the Confederate Party?
Mm-hmm.
There is no one there, right? So you're looking at, because this is now post uh the conversation with the orange one and the other devil, Musk. And for those of you watching, get rid of them Teslas and send a message.
Mhm.
Buy some other kind of electric car. He, in that interview, laughed with Musk because Elon Musk had fired striking, they were building porters, people that mop the floors for a living, right? And they went on strike and he fired them, right? Which is actually illegal under the National Labor Relations Act. But they have enough money to drag you out for the next 20 years. So by the time you win your back pay, your wife left you, lost the house, the kids hate you, and you're done, right? And they understand this.
Yep.
So if UPS is supporting Trump, if Carol Tomei is supporting Trump, if the majority of the billionaire class is supporting Trump, why would the working class think that their win is in that same game, in that same pot? How can your win be in the pot of
The
the ruling
employer.
class,
Right.
right? So the issue is, and this is where leadership comes in. Leadership comes and says to its members, I know this is difficult for you because we have racists, we have white supremacists, we have anti-black people, we have all of those things mixed up in the Teamsters, right? We understand that. Well, you know, God bless America. It's a free country that allows you to have crazy ideas. But as a leader, you have to take the difficult task of saying your position is antithetical to the labor movement. Racism is anti-worker. Sexism is anti-worker. And if you can't lead that parade to say, hey, listen, um, what you're about to embark on, whatever your personal feelings are, right? Because we all have personal feelings. You have to understand how this affects your union, your contract.
Mhm.
Because when your turn comes to go on strike someplace, they're going to squash you. There's not going to be any support from that government for you because there's no one there that believes in you. They want you to work. I might have said this in Jack Welch, who is called the godfather of CEOs in America, was asked, if you had to build a factory tomorrow, where would you build it? And he said, on a barge, Barge. And he goes, a barge, why? And he says, so I could take it from low wage country to a lower wage country to a lower wage country to exploit low wages. If we don't build up, right? So we have to expand our reach as trade unionists beyond the 50 states. We have
Mhm.
to reach into countries in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Asia, and start to make sure that we are joining forces. We defeated a company called MCI years ago when Jackie Presser was the general president, and Local 111 was run by a guy named Dan Kane Sr. And they had a strike, and they stopped or impacted the potential to broadcast the Olympics that was in Korea at the time. And they said, yo, we ain't broadcasting nothing through Australia and these other countries. And you have to have that global solidarity, but not just around one thing, right? But around the general conditions of workers globally. Because now they're moving to build ports in Mexico to bypass the International Longshore Warehouse Union on the West Coast, right? Who have good wages, good benefits, good pensions. And they're going to exploit every nook and cranny to undermine the working class in the United States because the ultimate intent is to bring our standard of living down so that we line up with the so-called third world. And we have to be very careful, because most people don't really delve into some of the things that's being said in other parts in Davos and in the World Economic Forum and these different organizations. we need to be very clear. We need to pick up a thing called uh, Foreign Affairs. It's a magazine and read what these people from um, you know, that are so-called ambassadors and what have you, what the thought process is around the world and how they see things develop. We don't speak out against what's happening in Gaza, which is clearly some genocidal behavior, clearly some pro-war behavior, which
Hmm.
is anti-peace and therefore anti-worker, right? Dr. King talked about us being a part of being the purveyors. We're the most violent government on the planet, right? Because all we do is sell ammunition to people every day to kill people. We have to rein that in because that's money that's not being spent on building 3 million new homes for the working class. That's a serious proposal,
You're
right?
right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, when people think about it, you going out here, you working right now, how difficult it is to raise the down payment to buy a house that's worth $500,000, right? Because there's no housing stock, right? In New York, we had Levittown, and the government went out and created the conditions to build these smaller homes, but that were now available to the working class. And they moved uh, a significant portion of the white working class out of government housing, out of the projects, right? Because blacks couldn't live in Levittown, and moved them into what became the foundations of suburban America, the suburbs, right? So these things that are taking place over 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40 years. And we just keep thinking 3 years contract to contract to contract. We have to become very cognizant of this broader game that's being played around us that we largely ignore.
Sister Yvette, I gotta ask you, since down south, right? How are the members feeling about this non-endorsement and how they think it's going to impact this election, especially being in a right to work state and things. I mean, how is it, how the members feeling down there?
Actually, I was in DC last week at the political conference when
Oh, okay.
the bullshit came out. Uh, so I wasn't around my people necessarily. I only got a chance to see them a couple of days this week, but
Okay.
I was totally pissed off because it made absolutely no sense as to why we went out basically like some suckers. And now with these polls that are very skewed, like we were saying, we have no idea how many people actually voted. You have us out here looking like we Trumpers as Teamsters, and that's just not the
Hmm.
move. And that's by no means accurate in no way. Like I said, it's 1.3 million of us. We couldn't get that many people to even vote in our own elections, much less straw polls, calls, and that other stuff.
Right,
So
right.
you know, the context is very, very key. But now that you posted this nonsense, like my brother in the comments, brother Palmer said, Trump is sending that all over the place, and that's what
Yeah.
every story is leading
Well,
with. The Teamsters, your people said they like Trump. No, the hell we didn't, and no, the hell we don't. It's
yeah.
a few of us, in this membership, but it is not the majority of us. So
Not
please
at
don't play
all.
us like that. So we have a lot of work to do to put out and to make sure that they definitely know it is not all of us. And I'm screaming it from the rooftops everywhere I get a chance to go
Yeah.
and making sure my people understand what time it is and what we need to do. But definitely we didn't need that bullshit not in my state. I mean, of course, I'm in Georgia, so um, we already with a fight, here in this
Hmm.
right to work red state. So we don't need that rhetoric pushed to the members that do feel that way. They need to understand what's really going on and who really saved us and will continue to help us for now, since these are the parties we have. Because
Right,
we do recognize they both need some work, but we know it is not even an option to go the other way in
right.
this instance. So, very pissed. Also pissed about how we were referred to as members of the TNBC as our chairman representing this certain group,
Yeah, that was
like
bad.
certain group. Who the hell is that?
Yo,
We're Teamsters over here, so representing the membership. You know what I'm saying? So I'm feeling a certain kind of way right now about a lot of this, and it's really not good. But I'm going to utilize that to push to make sure we get what we need to get here in the near future.
yeah, I can't believe he said that. I still can't believe he said that, man. That was man, my phone, man. I ain't know what happened. I had members texting me. They were like, "Yo, what is he talking about?" I'm a dues paying member. I've been paying dues for almost 30 years, and you telling me I'm not affiliated with the Teamsters because I'm black? I was like, I was like, what? I said, what you talking about? Man, I listened to it, man. I was like, man, this is crazy. I can't I can't believe it. Fontaine, now you up in the Midwest. So how you guys feeling up around that part of the country about all this nonsense that's happening? You gotta take yourself off mute.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. John, Chris, Yvette, Mr. Hooker. Ah, man, a lot has transpired since the last time we had this Zoom
Yeah,
meeting, and man, the members was not happy about that. But some good positive things did come out of it. This morning we had our general meeting at the hall, and I attended it on Zoom, just like we're doing right now, and with the leadership and the rank and files and the members of our own local, we just went ahead and decided, local 17, that we was going to do the right thing for the labor union, labor movement, and
right.
go ahead and endorse, Kamala Harris. Yeah, so like I said, man, it's a lot of different intangibles that I just didn't agree with. First of
Yeah,
all, I had questions that we kind of answered now with this polling system. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get no phone call.
yeah.
I
I
didn't get
don't think
nothing.
nobody did, man. Not, especially not on this call.
Man,
They, yeah, that whole thing was just trash, man. When I saw that, I'm like, hold on a minute, man. When did this happen?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, from just for the feedback that I just was getting, like you said, I got a lot of phone calls and everything and questions about it. You know, like Mr. Chris Rivera said, we do got people that, you know, want to vote the other way, and that's the
Hmm.
American,
Democracy. Yeah,
the democracy, exactly. You know, how you got your choice to do what you want to do. But I even think I mentioned it on the first Zoom call. It's like, we got to vote for the best interest of, these horses, the labor union. And I think that's the what things that pull every member across the country together is we all in it family fighting for one cause.
right.
And I don't see how people don't see that. And, Mr. O'Brien, yeah, he did a debunk on this one.
I hear
So,
you.
but the Midwest, you know what I'm saying? 710, can't speak for 705, but I think they lean the same way as we are.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
came out. They came out, I believe, a couple of days ago with a letter saying they endorsing Kamala Harris too.
that's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah, so yeah, in the Midwest, we're gonna hold it. We're gonna hold it down here.
All right. So let me go to West Coast. I see I got Mama Spears. I don't know if you busy or not.
Hey, it's Philip, West Coast. I don't know if what Jack,
Okay, there you go. All right. What's up, Phil?
what's going on. What's going on
Yeah, man. How
now,
you guys feeling about this out there on the West Coast, man?
man? You can imagine.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can imagine. Since the day Sean O'Brien spoke at the RNC, my mouth has kind of been open,
Mm,
and Chris, Richard, y'all know my allegiances,
yeah,
and it's been hard. It's been hard to see the political side of this, to see the nonsense, and I'm an O'Brien supporter. So I'm kind of speechless. But number one, I'm a Harris supporter,
right,
so that ain't never gonna change anything. So I think the number one thing is we just can't be distracted by all of this. It's a distraction method. It's something that our prize is to get Harris in the White House,
right, right.
and after that, people have to answer some questions.
Yeah.
People have to answer some questions. I mean, it's unfortunate, and as an O'Brien supporter, I wanted to see all of this through.
Hmm.
see exactly, what his advisors had been telling him, what kind of angle he was going at with this. And, I've seen enough. And it's not a good result.
Right.
It's not a good result. I'm not feeling good about it. Um, I have allegiances on that board. So you
Mm-hmm.
can imagine how I'm feeling. So I
Yeah.
don't be
You
distracted.
you and I talked about that at the TNBC.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Exactly. We did.
Yep.
We talked
Yep.
about it at NBC, and I was kind of on the fence, like, okay, I know my people. Maybe I don't know O'Brien as much as Chris does with all that history. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt,
Mm-hmm.
whether they have changed their ways or things that they've been accused of. And, I don't judge people on that. I judge on what I've seen of them
Mm-hmm.
and what I've seen in front of me. And I won't just say on O'Brien, everybody that's sitting there with John Palmer. And thank you, John Palmer, for stepping up. I don't know you personally, but I saw you at the TNBC. Um, it's just whatever it is, whatever you saw in there, whether it's fear, whether it's everybody trying to save their position. I don't know what it is, but it ain't right. It ain't right. So I ain't gonna ramble on. But one of our members um over in 399, we called. She called Curb and basically apologized that we was wrong. That we was wrong, and it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, it is. Everybody is wrong at a certain point. And nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. But now that we know that mistake has been made, now that we know we are wrong, what are we going to do about it moving forward? And that's a piece that I know we can't talk about it right now, but at a certain point, after, like you said, after we get Kamala across the finish line, we are going to have to talk about what do we do next. We have to, because we cannot go down this road again. We just can't. Right now, we are the laughing stock of the entire labor movement. I was talking to one of my members earlier. When you used to say Teamster, man, that meant something. It don't mean anything after what happened, you know? And we got to change it. So I got Sister Taylor. I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I was watching the Rams game, so I wasn't going to talk, but it's halftime. Um, the I want to go back and ask a question on the polling.
Mhm.
Does Did we actually know? I know what the count was for the polls for that QR code, but do
Mhm.
we actually know on the straw polls how many people actually showed up on those polls? That's one question that I have. And the other question I have, and maybe it's for Brother Palmer, um, in the room when the decision was made to vote um, no endorsement. What I'm trying to understand, I don't know what you can tell us, but I'm really trying to understand the way that worked, because it strikes me to the point that Chris made and everybody has made about how all these people voted no endorsement and then walked out the room and voted for their locals and joint councils to endorse. Um, I'm trying to understand, was there like a sales pitch going on there, or what? Like, how? I want to know that part, but I'm also wondering, as compared to the number of people that voted in the on the QR code, that 40,000, and the 1,000 that answered the telephone polls. Those are my two questions, and then I also wanted to ask Yvette if did the LGBTQ plus endorse Kamala Harris? Was that something? What, y'all had a caucus meeting as well too. So those are my three things, and then I'm mute myself and listen to all of you all. And thanks, Philip, for speaking up for the West Coast.
So, John, I
So
guess the first question is, I guess, what happened in that room? Was there like the sister said, what happened? And we talked about it earlier in the program where, we voted to not endorse in front of the GP, but then when we left, we said, "Hey, we're going to endorse her." So what was something said? Was something done? And I think Allison, if I'm out of speaking out of place, you let me know. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm just
so
I'm just trying to understand how they all went that direction.
um,
Yeah.
I'd like, well, I do understand, and so I wanted to pose a question, the statement that I'd like to understand because I can't get my head around it, how you can compromise your integrity. So basically, to answer you asked the question initially about that straw poll. I was taking notes and I don't have my notes with me right now. I don't know if I managed to get that. I was actually chastised by the general president. He said, "Well, make sure you get them right." Something to that nature while I was taking my notes, and I told him, "Thanks for reminding me." So we sort of have a special love relationship around that table. He always advocates for transparency, and I guess anytime I'm transparent, he gets pretty angry. Um, the process to explain the process. Uh, they went around the table initially. Sean did a absolute sell job to introduce this whole thing. They took uh, somebody, the staff member, and he came out and explained, their take on the polls and how they worked, and so basically stating that the straw polls had a low turnout, stating that the QR polls they alleged 40,000 turnout, and then the Lake Research poll they were justifying that 1,000 should be the sort of the bottom side of a benchmark for a good poll, so it was 900 some change. Um, Not much discussion about the questions. We all know that first of all, polls are wildly unreliable, and over time it's been even worse. It seems like I mean, I'm listening to some of these polls now and I shake my head. Um, but so the process actually went around the room. It started first with all of the members that were there. There were four, the Canadian presidents, and I had to modify my list that I've been posting in public a couple of times because I was working off of my notes. So the Canadians abstained because they don't, as we say down south, they don't have a dog in the hunt. So, and they're polite. I have no issue with the Canadians. They show up and they vote however O'Brien tells them, and they take their money and they go home. Okay, they're polite, like all Canadians. They're very polite. Um, the trustees get to deliberate, but they don't get a vote. And so there were also four GEB members that were absent. Two of them excused, I think Campos and Taby, Jones and Hicks had left. So um, it wound up being actually like what was it, 14-3,
14-3,
17.
right.
So the initial run around the table, it encompassed everybody, including the trustees, excluding the Canadians. And there was one of the trustees, Dan Kane Jr., that spoke on behalf of Kamala Harris. So I think it's important to let everybody know that Dan Kane Jr. was. But as to the rest of them, other than Thor, myself, obviously, and Avril, they co-opted the you know Sean O'Brien spiel that was laid out there for them, and they made a lot out of the polls. Now, when we started voting, Sean had his long intro, and he said, there's one of us in here who's been very vocal, and we've all seen it, we've all heard it, and he said that would be you, Vice President Palmer, and said even after hearing all these polls, where are you? Has it changed your mind? And I said, absolutely no. I said, number one, we're not here to reflect a poll back to our membership. we're here to reflect the facts back to our membership and let the facts support that. And we should have been the facts that, we should have been using those facts to inform our members going all the way back to January when all this started. And I give a ton of credit to both Johnson and Thompson for stepping up and doing what was clearly uncomfortable. And I'm just going to say this: it's no mystery. Sean O'Brien's a bully, and he tries to intimidate people. He gets very forceful and outright angry sometimes, which that's not good for your blood pressure. So I suggest maybe go to one of those dispensaries and chill a little bit. But but that's how the process works. And there's no, I put it in the comments box. I'm not going to run away from it. It was a cowardice act. The damage that they did by taking that vote, and that vote goes out, and Trump's running around the country. Those polls, as far as I'm concerned, are illegitimate, and they're a tool to justify this man, this orange idiot, the Cheeto Mussolini, as my friend calls him, run around the country claiming that Teamsters support him overwhelmingly. I'm totally offended by it. It was a setup from the get-go. But you know what? In athletical terms, you need to check yourself, man. You need to check yourself. There was another question there, right? I mean, don't buckle your chin strap up. Check yourself. All right.
Okay, Hooker, real quick. I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
you had asked for me. I want to thank Philip for taking up for the Western, for supporting us on the Western, because I'm in the kitchen. I'm cooking some macaroni and cheese and bread pudding. My grandson is here, so he
Okay.
wants some
All right.
bread pudding. So I got to finish doing that. So that's what I was doing. So I want you to understand I wasn't missing you or anything. So him and my granddaughter and they're all here. So I'm trying to finish cooking real quick. But I will be back on. So I'm just gonna have you guys on mute, okay?
Appreciate
So I
it.
want you to know that I didn't forget. Like I said again, Philip, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you.
I know we got Dr. Anticoli and we got Dr. Cooper. Uh, if you
I was just
guys
going
want to
to
chime in on it,
answer.
how you guys been educators here in the city of Philadelphia about what has happened since this debacle of leadership, I'll call it. I mean, if you guys want to chime in,
Could I jump in right quick to
go ahead. Go
answer
ahead.
Al's
Yeah,
question?
go ahead, sis.
Uh, yeah, so certain 501(c)s cannot endorse candidates. It's forbidden because of IRS rules. So our caucus know well that the board members individually have our own, we can say whatever we want to say on our own, but as a caucus, we can't say whatever we want to say. But we are supportive of Kamala individually on the board, but we can't come out and put something out, even though we want to, but we can't based on how we were made up before we got there. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right.
I'll be on.
Uh,
I'll be on momentarily,
okay.
brother Hooker. I'm just getting here in Atlantic City.
Okay. All right. So before we go to the next thing, because I do want to touch base on what was said in the interview about our chairman James Kirby, and I want to give a shout out to him, especially for um, he did this interview on Thursday, and man, he did a phenomenal job. And I would encourage everybody to watch that. I mean, this lady, I don't know the lady name. She tried her best to get him tripped up, jammed up, slip up, and he knocked it out of the park. And he's taking a lot of flack because don't forget, the TNBC was the first group from the Teamsters to come out and endorse Kamala Harris, right? And so he's been just lighting it up. But that interview, he actually put it out there. What happened with these polls? Who did you call? Who What are you talking about? How many of them was it, right? And he put that out there for all of America to see that there was some shady stuff that went on with this poll, right? And he put it out there. And then Dana Bash, I believe she's from what, CNN? I think she's
Yeah,
CNN,
Dana
right?
Bash is CNN.
She had an interview with the general president, and she brought up Beam, and he says that well, James Beam he represents uh, a certain group that is not affiliated with the Teamsters. Now, when I first heard that, man, I was like, come on, man. You gotta use your language better than that, right? But before we get to that, Chris, I'm gonna turn it over to you. But I just want to really talk about this piece of making our folks understand that when you go in that booth on November the 5th, your employer is hoping that you vote the way they will vote, which is against your pension, against collective bargaining, against your contract, against the expiration date of your contract. Because all my UPS folks, again, August 1st, 2028, one of these two people are going to be in office. And whether or not you vote the right way will determine if you will be allowed to strike or not. One of them laughing about striking, one of them think it's funny, one think you should be fired, and the other one actually gets out there and walks the picket line with you. I'm trying to find out what was so hard about this decision. It's not hard. It really isn't. It shouldn't have been this crazy to have the Teamsters go up and down. And now look at us now, man. We are just is we in disarray right now, to be honest with you. But again, on November 5th, and I told my members this morning at our general membership meeting, because I know we have some Trump supporters, and I told them, listen, I love you anyway. That's never gonna change. But make sure that your love for your pension is more than your love for Trump. Make sure your love for the collective bargaining rights is more than your love for Trump. Make sure your love for having a pro-national labor relations board is more than your love for Trump. Make sure your love to maybe go on strike against for what you want is more than your love for Trump. It's really that simple. I didn't talk about him being a convicted felon. I didn't talk about him being a racist. I didn't talk about him wanting to, control over women's bodies or the government should be in the room with them when they're making these decisions. We didn't even talk about that. How do you feel about Carol Tomei having the upper hand on you if you don't have the right to strike? Because again, you know who she voting for? She ain't voting for Kamala. And I'm gonna throw this in for free. Next time I'm gonna have to charge you. A couple months ago, we had our panel. And in that panel, right after it was over, we started talking about other issues that we needed to resolve with the company. During the conversation, the company's co-chair told me, he said, man, I know you guys with Kamala, because Kamala, she's going to make sure that you guys get a COLA raise next time. So I said, well, I guess you guys going to vote for the other guy because you're just going to support what you want and not what your workers want, your employees want, our members. It's just that simple. They are going to vote their interests, which is dominating our members. It's really that simple. And if we can't get our members to understand that, then we're really going to have to do a better job, myself included. We're going to have to do a better job at educating our members because you can't tell me that if I listen to Donald Trump talk to Elon Musk about the pleasure of firing workers, those workers who made a decision, a sacred decision, to take the company to the street because they demanded more for their labor. And you think it's funny. You think that member, that worker wanted to go on strike, not to get paid? You think they wanted to do that? No, they didn't want to do that. But they realized that that was the only way they were going to get something. And you think it's funny. You think it's comical. You think that it's all right. No, it's not all right. So, we have to engage and educate our members because Trump is not it. He's not. We know it, they know it, but for whatever reason, that love for that type of whatever Trump represents, they want that more than they want a good contract. And we got to change that. Now, Brother Chris, I want to talk about what the general president said to this about us being this certain group and us not being affiliated, even though this I'm coming up on my 25th year anniversary of being a Teamster, and I've been paying dues to this to the Teamsters for 25 years. I didn't know that I was a part of a certain group that that wasn't affiliated. Because if that was the case, man, just send me my dues back. You know what I mean? And then we could go pay them somewhere else. But I know you've been around a long time, and I know there's some history and there's some context here about TNBC being a part of the IBT and not. But it's the way he said it that was so, man, it was just so jacked up, man. Like I said, the majority of my members are black and brown people, and when they heard that, they immediately got offended because, yo, man, what you trying to say about me? I'm not a Teamster because of my skin color. So, Chris, can you explain that a little bit better than what he did?
Well, it took a constitutional amendment to make Africans born in America citizens. It took until about 1924 before Native Americans, those who descend from the Lakota and the Cherokee and the Iroquois and all these people became citizens of the United States, right? We have always been other in the eyes of others. So when you are not a part of what he perceives to be his group, right? Now this is a gentleman that comes from a local that has no people of color working in that local, not even mopping the floor, right? This is someone who just fired a very talented young lady. Her name is Angelique DeGrasse. 17 years. He fired her after standing up in front of 16 or 1700 women in Nashville and saying, I'm going to promote her to become the director of the department. Comes back to Washington, D.C., splits the department in two, and subsequently terminates her services. Quietly at the IBT right now, there are black people being terminated for nothing, right? But being black. So does he consider you to be other? I would advise him to read a book about how the Irish became white, because one time they were an other too. But we're in a struggle, and we have to remind ourselves that we have overcome many, many, many obstacles. And he is just another obstacle. Many people ran up there. I spoke at an event in Los Angeles maybe a year or two before the election. And I told them then, do not make the mistake of voting for this racist individual to become the general president of the Teamsters. He has yet to say to me, hey, Chris, I am not racist. He has yet to say that to me at any point in time, right? Your actions tell me who you are. But we must understand, because this is a very truism in America, that some people would rather be poor if they believe that their whiteness will give them some privilege that a black person cannot achieve. They would rather lose their pension, lose their wages, lose their house, lose their car, if they believe that my whiteness is going to allow me to get into a room that you cannot get into because you're black, right? Now, I just want to remind you that before General President O'Brien became the head of Local 25, they used to have a black business agent there named Henderson, right? And Henderson got terminated. Well, I mean, I say got terminated, but after he took office, we didn't see Henderson no more, and nobody was able to ever replace Henderson with some other business agent of color that's coming up. So we already have someone that's exhibited this thing. He got sued. First step up, fired all these black and Latino people, got sued and lost, right? Then he turned around and he retaliated. So there's a pattern of behavior that makes him very much alike the Orange Devil, right?
Mm.
So you see the synergy between the two of them, but he is the uh, one is he's the submissive. The orange one is the dominant, right? So this is the relationship that you have right there. And he chooses that. And it's a choice because you could remain the dominant and never have gone to Mar-a-Lago. You could have remained the dominant. So you know that from that moment when he went there, that he went there to cut that deal. That deal was struck in Mar-a-Lago, not at 25 Louisiana Avenue. And they know it, right? And there's an attorney that they're using to sue. Was that firm Peabody in them? Very
Yeah,
anti-union
Peabody.
law firm. Now, why would my union want to hire anything? That's like local 808 deciding tomorrow wanted to hire Jackson Lewis to represent its interest, right?
Right.
So you have to understand that everybody that is in the labor movement is not a trade unionist.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of businessmen here. We have a lot of criminals here. We have a lot of corrupt people here. Okay? You have people who would rather have been the vice president at the company, but the company didn't want them. And so they took whatever little talent they had and brought it to the union. And, people use color as a methodology to achieve outcomes. We who are trade unionists, we fight against that, right? We fight against the idea that someone would want to have something that a woman couldn't have, or somebody that was LGBT and qualified couldn't have. People forget the reason we had a Negro Leagues. Blacks used to play baseball up until the very early 1918, around that time, and they got driven out of baseball, right? And then we had to create this separate league, right? There was a time when they didn't think that blacks could be general managers, that blacks could be head coaches, that blacks could be quarterbacks. We have been through these things. But I remind people that there was a prime minister of England, and her name was Margaret Thatcher. That there was a prime minister in Israel, Golda Meir. That there was a prime minister in India, 1 billion people, Indira Gandhi, right? That women have run countries before. Women are very big in the Fortune 500, are climbing up those walls in the Fortune 500. Today, Carol Tomé.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump's world, Carol Tomé does not exist. Not as the CEO of UPS or the CEO of anything, right? So if you look at the behavior of that group of oligarchs, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and these people, every one of them have exhibited the most extreme anti-worker position because you have things as the working class that they don't want you to have. They don't want you to have that pension. That pension is money that could be turned into a thing called profit. And the union doesn't make us equal with Carol Tomé.
Right.
It just allows us an opportunity to fight
There you go.
with
Right.
Carol Tomé.
Right.
Because the system that we live in, this capitalist system
Mm-hmm.
that people believe means it's democratic, Capitalism is an economic structure.
Mm-hmm.
Democracy is a social structure. People need
Mm-hmm.
to separate them. Capitalism, by its very nature, gives the advantage to the boss every time.
Right.
That's a structure. You have to extract capital. So when you extract capital from the system, that means that the worker got less. That means that the system got less. That's how you end up with $200 billion. That's how you end up with $150 billion. That six people have over $700 billion. Six, right? They
Yeah.
could never, if they spent $100 million a month, they could never go broke because the money was be making so much money that they couldn't spend it fast enough, right? But they would deny you a pension, deny you health care, deny you the wages to buy a house and raise a family. We are in a struggle. Let me tell you, Sean O'Brien is an obstacle in the path of the working class to achieve its just due in this system and in this money that we create. And people need to understand it. People don't understand how this interacts with the growth and the rise of China to become the dominant player on the planet today. If China cuts off you don't have no underwear tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get no holes in your underwear because they can cut you off. We could not get a mask in COVID because we had to go to China. Most of the medicines that we have are made in India. So when you're going in, oh, this and that, these things are being formulated. Our work has been shipped out post-World War II. People think it's really NAFTA and PNTR just mashed the gas pedal to the floor, but those things have been going on for years and years. When you pick up the phone, if you have a issue with your credit card or the airlines, you're talking to somebody in the Philippines or India. So we have to understand that this is capitalism globalizing itself and the oppressor, right? Because China has billionaires, right? The Communist Party runs a capitalist system, right? Because if you read Karl Marx says that you had to accumulate wealth before you could make the transition to socialism, right? Russia never did that. Russia tried to make the transition before it had developed that industrial base and that uh, concentration of capital. People need to understand these things. We're in a war. We're in a war for the survival of our children, of whether or not our pensions are going to have value.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me tell you something. Right now, the United States owes $35 trillion to whomever it borrows money from. If the dollar is no longer the global currency, there is no printing your way out of 35 trillion, right? So you can't just crank up the press and, hey, here's your money, here's your money, here's your money, right? You can't do that. You have to have 35 trillion, which means that the impact to the economy, right? Because inflation is going to go through the roof, which means your $3,000 a month pension, $4,000 a month pension is worth $200. And a house in Florida is worth $500,000. And you can't afford it, you can't pay your rent. We are in very dangerous waters. And what our General President, the path that he was allowed to take is very dangerous for the entire working class, black, white, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, because those people are going to find out later on if this goes the wrong way. They're going to go, oh, we made a mistake. Hey, listen, you can't make that mistake in the game, right? When you're playing, The winner is the guy that made the least mistakes, right? Which means that you have to study all those things that's happening around you, right? So this guy that's running around, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm a Trump supporter. The society allows you to take that choice, but you have to ask yourself, why are you making that choice when everything that this man has indicated is anti-worker? If you're a worker, if you hit the lottery and you got 300-400 million in your pocket and you flip, I got you. You don't want to pay no taxes. See 50 cents. I got that. But if you're hitting that clock every morning,
Yeah.
getting paid by the hour, you have no interest. Now, I don't want to make it like the Democratic Party is some panacea. That's not true. But in the game, you want to play the person or you want to fight with the person that you're going to have the greatest opportunity to win.
Right.
Something, right? So you're not gonna get the Super Bowl, but if you vote for the Democrat, you'll at least get to be in the playoffs, right? Under the Confederate Party, there is no playoffs. Take your pads off, take your helmet off, take your cleats off. We're not even going to play. The trophy belongs to me, and nobody played anything. This is where they want to go to. Trump took a picture when he was a kid in military school, and he borrowed the jacket of a young man that had all these medals he had earned, and says, "Yo, can I borrow your jacket to take this picture?" And took a picture that was not his jacket with all these medals, like he had won something. So the great builder never passed an infrastructure bill. His claim to fame is passing a tax law that added about $5 trillion to the deficit to the benefit of the 0.01%. He created no jobs, right? Destroyed the infrastructure that would have helped us deal with COVID initially, right? Look at what happened in Texas. There's a gentleman that killed somebody in a Black Lives Matter uh, demonstration. Greg Abbott pardoned that person. Look at this. So people just kind of like Trump, 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 Trump. This is an entire apparatus that's taking place. Look at what's happening in Georgia. Look at what they want to do in Nebraska with the one vote, because they distribute their electoral college delegates by congressional district. And this one district that tends to go Democrat, right? They want to change the rules so they can't do that. This is about a dictatorship. This is about the rule of this autocratic group. So don't just focus on Trump.
Right.
Right? So we get caught Trump, Trump, Trump. No. There's an entire apparatus that has been laid out state by state by state by state. We're in a war. And this is why I'm saying this is what my real problem with this whole thing is. This ain't Mitt Romney versus some Hillary Clinton or whatever, right? This is dictatorship, autocracy versus the working class. That's what this is.
Right. So, Chris, we know that there was the debacle at the IBT. And we know that if we don't get our folks out, get them registered to vote, get them out to the polls, then all we're doing is just making noise.
Yeah.
So we moving forward, we have to get our people, get them together. Like today, we had our commissioner of Philadelphia, Omar Sabir. He came in and got us ready to register all our membership. Our members that came to the meeting today, they ready to rock and roll. They already registered to vote. We ready to go. Now we're going to continue to do that because here in Pennsylvania, the last day to register is October the 21st. So we're just going to be on a blaze trying to get all of our members to the polls, getting them registered, and making sure they have a plan to vote. because the day we found out that Philadelphia has about 10 um, places where you can go to now and vote early. And so
Right.
we got that information. We're gonna put it on our website, put it on social media, spread the word. So if you live in Philly and you need a ride, you can, let us know and we'll make sure that you can get to these places
Right, right.
early, right? Because I know on November the 5th, man, it's gonna be a lot of people. The line's gonna be long and you're gonna be working and this, that, and the other. But this election is so important. Every vote is going to count. Because if we don't, we're gonna mess around and miss out on this. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to touch on something. There's a gentleman in North Carolina, Robinson.
Yeah.
This man,
He's
for
a maniac, man.
listen, but he has been they're just bringing up some things now. He has been spewing this rhetoric,
I know.
certainly I didn't know it, maybe it was doing it 10 years ago, but I'm talking about the last 6, 7 months.
Yeah.
No one was taking him to task. Donald Trump says this man was Martin Luther King
Martin Luther King.
steroids.
Yes.
When did Martin Luther King ever say, I'm a Nazi? I support Nazism. I support the right of a woman not to vote. This is a dangerous, dangerous moment in time.
Yeah.
What happens in November is going to change history forever. We have to ensure that these Confederates are defeated, right? We have to burn this sucker to the ground to make sure them suckers, we gotta be like Sherman.
Yeah.
They have to be defeated because this is the come out. When you just think about this with AI, right? With the media, 6 companies control 90% of what everybody hears. Elon Musk owns a third of every satellite that's floating around. There are 4,600 satellites floating around this planet as we speak. He owns a third of them, right? There's some guy stuck up on this up in the space station. They gotta call Elon Musk. Say, yo, man, could you go get my boys back? Even Boeing can't do it. They gotta call Elon. This the guy James Bond used to be fighting to get if y'all used to watch them early
Right.
James
Right.
Bond movies. You know what I mean? Like, this is serious. This is serious. We are going to, if this is the battle to create labor unions that came out of the 1800s in particular and the early 1900s will be nowhere as dangerous as it's going to be going forward because of their ability to follow you with smartphones and satellites and all these different things like that. So when you go on and say you organizing, you better not have one of these with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're killing them in Colombia right now, right? There are places in this world that if you're a union organizer, you actually you signed a death warrant, right? So we have to be very clear about the path, and that's what makes this Sean O'Brien thing treasonous, treasonous, right? So anyone who's sitting here, oh, I support Sean O'Brien, it's treasonous. If you're of color, if you care about the movement, if you care about standard of living, defending Social Security, because only a few of us have pensions, but defending Social Security, improving Social Security, making sure that Medicare is around when you retire, making sure that those less than us have Medicaid, right? Because this is all a part of the working class. We can't just think about contracts and the 7% of us that have these things, right? That 7% is actually in a decent space as it is today. But there's 93% of the working class that don't have any of those things. That paid 20% into, UPS, you work for UPS, you don't pay into your pension. If you're 399 member, you probably don't pay, I mean, in your health care. If you're a 399 member, you probably don't pay in your health care. If you're lucky to be a 639 member, you probably don't pay into your health care. But there are people that are paying 20% of their salary to have health coverage. Forget the copay when you go see the doctor. This is a monthly thing coming out of your check week by week by week by week by week, so you can have health coverage, right? So we need to be very clear that when we fight, we can't just fight for ourselves, because most of our children are not going to be in a union. They're going to be working someplace else. UPS only have 300 and something thousand people, and they're laying them off. So
Yeah.
how many people are going to be at UPS in 10 years when the robots show up?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Driverless trucks show up. We're in a serious place. I mean, I went to a Miller brewing plant, and this was 30 years ago, and I'm telling you, that was all automated, and that was 30 years ago. Just bottles floating, running in, getting thrown into boxes, and the only time a human saw them was maybe 10 guys floating around that plant. Everything was robotic. That was 30 years ago.
Wow.
You have to be very clear. And what our general president did, you can call him Benedict Arnold, Benedict O'Brien.
No,
Total
not that,
suck.
Chris.
No, I'm telling you. No, no, no.
Wow.
Listen, this is not
Not
personal
bad.
feelings. This is our survival.
Right.
This is our survival, and specifically and particularly as Black workers, right? Because our survival in America has always been tenuous, right? Always been tenuous. We had to fight the union to be included in the union. People gotta, this is not, those of you guys that are born, in the 60s and the 70s, and before that, there was a Dr. King spoke about the racism in the labor movement. So we have to be very clear that what happened yesterday can happen tomorrow. This guy that's running in North Carolina says that women should lose the right to vote, that we should go back to having slaves. He wanted
Yeah, no,
slaves.
I still can't believe he said that, man.
Nobody, we're on the television and somebody say, have you lost your effing mind?
Mhm.
Nobody. This guy was pumped up, pumped up, pumped up until they found out that he liked to watch trans porn.
Yeah,
If he wasn't watching trans porn, we could go back to slavery. We could go back to women not having, because once
like
you start to go back business,
right.
you know, and his Irish ass needs to go study the history of the Irish in America when they were not considered white.
Mm.
You understand the point I'm saying?
Yep.
He needs to go and look at, because I know he knows, because when my mother went to England in 1960, there were signs up in England, no Irish or Black need apply for a damn thing here.
Wow.
Right? So they didn't see them as being better than Blacks and the darkies. They were just as bad as them.
Just as bad, right?
The first people to be enslaved in the West were not Africans, they were Irish, sold to Brazil.
Mm.
Right? So people need to understand this is about a system, right? And we are not a part of that system because we're not in the billionaire class. We're in the working class. We need to be very clear about what our class positions are when we play in this game.
Brother Myron, man, I haven't heard from you. What's happening? What's going on down in DC? He must not be. Oh, Myron. Dave Luby. All right. I see iPhone. No? All right. So, like I was saying, Chris, and everybody here, we need to get with our members, get with our coworkers,
Yeah.
and make sure they have a plan to vote. If they can vote early, we need to help them vote early. Whatever we need to do, if we have to get them to the polls, we need to help them get to the polls because this is going to be a very, very tight race. It shouldn't be, but because of the country and the state that we're in, it's going to be tight.
But
And
she's
every
fighting the double whammy,
Yeah,
She's
oh, I know. Oh,
color, she's
yeah,
a woman, right? So
right.
there are blacks that have issues with these highly qualified women,
Hmm.
and this is affecting the white male as well because there are more women in college, white women than white male. There are more black females in college than black males.
Right.
And the male, instead of saying maybe I need to go to college and catch up,
Right.
wants to use physical force to stop them from being who they are, to stop them
Mhm.
from achieving instead of competing. They can't compete. They've lost the will to compete. So they have to use might to try to uh, you know, stymie you.
Yeah.
What made you think you had a right to become the head of the union? Who the hell
Yeah.
are you? Negro?
You know what, man? You know what you said there, Chris? You're right. We do have a problem when we see one of us ascend to a position that either our own people don't think we should get, or somebody is just jealous. I'll never forget when I first ran. I had a senior shop steward, black guy. He saw me working, and he tells me, he says, you should go back to the old executive board and ask them for forgiveness. I said, what? Ask who for forgiveness? We didn't do anything wrong, right? But that's our mindset, man. When one of us wants to fight and speak out, that's the challenge when, especially this whole crab in a barrel mentality that we have, man. We can't have somebody that look like us get on top and get out. No, man, we all got to stay in this barrel and wait to get cooked. You know what I mean? But I'll never forget that conversation, man. That was one of the things, man. That I was like, wow, man, this guy. I respected this guy. And for him to say that, I mean, I was like, man, I couldn't believe he would say something like that. Ask for forgiveness. For who? For what? Right? Hey, Dr. Don, I see you got your hand up. What's happening?
Yeah, sir, brother. Okay, I just want to talk about the numbers again, if we can, back to the election. You know, they didn't tell us how many was in a straw poll, but when Curb was on the television, he said about 100 and some of his members voted, which was about 4%. We had about 5%. So if you take 5% of 1.3 million is 65,000, and then in that straw poll vote, they only reported 87% of the vote. So conceivably, Biden got over 50%, which is mean for Harris. So that would mean that we got 30 some thousand votes there, plus the other 30, 40%. We got over 55, 60,000 votes, and Trump and Center got about 45,000. So Curb was right on target when he was saying about what are the numbers.
Mm.
And I also want to thank Brother Silver, Brother Hooker, Brother Curb, Brother Palmer, Sister Dr. Robin Cooper for your fight here, and you're getting us all engaged here. And there's one other thing. Trump talks about inflation, and he's going to whip inflation, just like Gerald Ford's going to whip inflation. They want to whip inflation by cutting the workers' wages.
That's
Not
right.
like Bob Casey, who's saying greedflation, the
Yeah.
people charging the same price for. So we got to be careful with that one. Yeah, he'll whip inflation by cutting our salaries. Inflation is not related to the economy except when the prices outpace inflation, which means our wages have to outpace the prices. We didn't raise the prices. My father said the same thing 50 years ago. The working man didn't raise the prices, Donald. We're just trying to keep up.
That's it. That's it.
So I want to thank you again and keep the fight. We're ready to fight.
Yeah, and that's the education part and the education piece that we have to explain to our members about inflation because and I get it, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Anything go wrong, it's the head person's fault. I got that, but that's inflation is not on Biden or Harris. It's not on them totally, right? Capitalism plays a part in that. Corporate greed plays a part in all that, right? And so, but we don't talk about that. We always blame the person in charge, right? And we have to do a better job of engaging and educating our members on what these things mean. And there's a brother down in Louisiana, Gary Chambers. He does this thing across the country called Civics for the People, where
Yeah.
he goes around and talks to people about how government works, how it's supposed to work. What does your city council supposed to do? What does the state legislation do? What does Congress, Senate, the judicial, executive, what all that mean to underprivileged families? Because this is where he's going. He's talking to these folks who may not understand that all politics are local, right? And so he's explaining that in such a way where folks can understand, inflation and capitalism and all these things. And that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to have a class about civics for our members.
Yeah.
So they can understand what does it mean when you hear things like inflation and capitalism and the right to work. Because it sounds good, right to work. Oh man, I get a right to work. No,
Yeah.
you don't want that. You don't want that legislation. But we
Well,
need to explain what that means to our members so when they
so
go to the
sometimes
polls and vote, they'll know what we're talking about and who they're
sometimes
voting for.
inflation generally comes from an oversupply of capital
Yeah.
of money in the system. And that can be a good thing. So when COVID hit, there was an extension of unemployment. There was you couldn't kick people out of their house. There was money that went out to companies if you didn't lay people off, right? So there was for lack of a better term, oversupply of money that went into the system to prop it up from the federal government. That's inflationary, right? What follows it, and if you look at this, if you remember, they talked about the supply chain and how the supply chain was whacked up. Every
Yeah.
shipping company made more money than any other time in its history. Every railroad made more money than any other time in its history. UPS made more money than any other time in its history.
Yes.
Amazon made more money than any other time.
Yep.
Kroger's, all the supermarkets. But
Yep.
all of these people now take advantage of a situation. So if inflation would have raised the price by a nickel, right? This guy put 75 cents on top of the nickel, and now you're going, oh, inflation. No, 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 no. Inflation was a nickel. Greed was 75.
75 cents. Right. Right.
But nobody's pointing in that direction. Nobody's saying,
That's it. Now
you
that's
understand what I'm
the
saying?
point, Chris. That's it right
And
there.
that's what's happening. So people, oh, Joe Biden, Joe Biden. Listen, if Saudi Arabia chokes off oil, the supply of oil, the price of oil is going to go up.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Sure right now that the largest producer of oil in the world is the United States.
Yeah.
But most of our oil goes offshore, right? When they want to talk about this Keystone Pipeline,
Yeah.
the Keystone Pipeline is not oil coming to us. It's oil that's Canada don't want it to cross their own country, right? Them dirty dogs in New York do it. And they want, or in America do it. And they want that line to go straight to the south and offshore, right? So this is a supply and demand. So anybody that cuts the spigot,
Right.
the price is going to change. And then if you look at the profit of these oil companies, ExxonMobil, BP, pick one, every one of them, their profits are beyond anything they have seen in the past 5, 10, 15 years. And they're not paying any taxes, right? So the working class has the burden of having to pay taxes, right? Because we don't get paid in stocks and bonds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these people with their profit, they have all these tax guys, so they don't pay any taxes. I mean, there's a list of all these corporations that pay zero taxes. Some of them are getting tax refunds on paying no taxes at all, right?
That's right. It's like in the 70s, Chris, if you, some of us remember, that's when the first oil embargo started. In the early 70s, gas was
That's
30
right.
cents a gallon. But
73.
the Saudis and the Iraqis and all those folk cut it off, and that's when it started going up.
Yep. And people forget these things, right? Because nobody gives you the continuum of life. You know, it didn't start 6 months ago or 2 years ago. It's been going on for, 88 years. This has been a constant thing. So when, if you go into Mississippi and a guy says, hey, listen, you want to have a pension, you want to have better wages, you want to have retiree medical coverage, or you want to have white privilege now. Guy's going to choose white privilege, right? So that's a part of our struggle to convince this worker that standing in solidarity with Latino workers, with women, with LGBT, that solidarity is going to produce you a better outcome than simply being at the pleasure of the boss. That's what we're fighting against.
Right. It's a working class, no matter what your race, ethnicity, creed. The working class is what has to bond together.
Yes.
That's it.
And that's why I said that what our general president did is treasonous. I mean, it's Benedict Arnold didn't do as bad as this. This is very sad.
It is.
I just for the record, I just want to just tell people, I fought with Ron Kerry when he was the general president. I fought with Trump for 22 years when he was the general president.
Hoffa.
Yeah.
You said Trump.
I mean, oh yeah, well, Hoffa. Sorry. Sorry, Jimmy. I didn't in that ballpark. And now O'Brien, because at every step of the way, they look to themselves first. And in this work that we do, we have to look to our members first. Because if we do that, your reward is going to come with a re-election. You understand what I'm saying? But when you start looking out for your self-interest first, what is this going to do for me? You know what I'm saying? When you start doing that, that's when the errors start. That's when the mistakes start getting made. Our role is the will of the membership to a point, right? Because if we had put slavery to a vote, slavery would be still going on, right? This is not, because people look at what they believe to be their self-interest, but slavery was bad for the working class, the white working class. And liberating those enslaved workers actually strengthened the working class, even though they were resisting it, right? So this has been a continuum, a battle from the beginning of America to create a better space. Women couldn't vote. Remember this now. In the very beginning, only white men with property. Then when other white men got amped up, they got the right to vote. But then they created the Electoral College to control them just in case they got too woolly. Women didn't get the right to vote until 1921. 1921. Blacks didn't fully get the right to vote until 64, 65.
Then this is the problem too, Chris. In the schools, they've stopped teaching what we call actual history.
Yeah.
They teach more like social geography and stuff. History has not really been taught for about 20-some years.
Yeah.
That's why when Brother Richard says we got to educate our members. Any of our members that are, let's say, 45 and younger, 40 and younger, they probably never had history taught to them.
But it was by design because they were preparing for this day, right? It is Bill Clinton that changed the law to allow Rupert Murdoch to buy Fox. There was a law that you couldn't have foreign ownership of media. right? Who would allow Russian television, Chinese television? I mean, do we have American television in China? I bet you we don't, because they're not stupid enough. But there's a desire amongst those groups that want to oppress the working class, period. Right? Japanese working class, Chinese working class, Russian working class in general. There is a group. And so by creating the confusion and exacerbating the schisms, black, Latino, Asian, white, women, LGBT, by exacerbating those divisions, then they're creating confusion, right? Who's telling the truth,
Mhm.
right? Albert Einstein in 1948 said this day was going to come. And he said that the working class would not be able to tell what was real and what was false because this little group of six that controls everything, Disney, ESPN, channel, ABC, the movie studios and all these different things. Look at the movies that they make, these dystopian movies. They're pushing us into a place, so we can't, that's why we need leadership at the IBT, right, in the labor movement that is going to be rescuing the working class and said, no, you're going to get straight information. It's going to come from us. We're going to tell you what, we're going to be a part of trying to make sure that real information goes out to the working class because they're confused. Clean hands and a pure
Pure
heart.
heart. Yep. So we got a couple minutes, and I just want to thank everybody for getting on. We're gonna try to have to rev these conversations up because this election is very, very important, and um, maybe for the whole month of October, we could do one every Sunday, Chris.
I'm down.
Because we got to get our members engaged and educated on these issues, man. Because this election is too important not to have these conversations, right? We got to get our members to the ballot. We got to let them know that their employers are voting a certain way, and the way they're voting is not going to benefit you or your family. And that has to be the message. I know what the general president did, all that, but at the end of the day, we have the responsibility to let our members know that your employer is watching how you vote. They want you to vote again a certain way. Dr. Cooper, what's happening? I don't know if you want to say anything before we get out, before we get off the air. I see you got
Hey,
the Golden Gate behind you.
see, I got the Golden Gate behind me.
Yeah,
How's everyone?
good.
I listened the entire time, and this is some fabulous good stuff. Yes, uh, we have got to get everybody registered to vote, and we have to not only get them registered, we have to push them to vote.
Yeah,
We have to get we have to get Kamala in. We have to make certain that she is the person in the White House because she is the person that most aligns to union rights, workers' rights, and we have to get her in.
yeah.
It's
It's
point
that
blank.
simple. Yeah,
So
it's that
that
simple.
is just that's it. It's if we are saying that we're union and we're about unions and we're about workers' rights, it's a no brainer. It is a no brainer. Trump has stated that he could care less about the working man. He has just done some atrocities that we all know about. So the bottom line is she is what we need right now for any union,
Yeah.
not just ours, for any and all unions. She's just a better candidate. She is the better candidate, and we need to make sure that she gets.
All right, sis. Thank you.
That's it.
All right. Yeah, but we're gonna get out of here real quick, man. I'm trying to keep these to 2 hours or less because I don't want to hold everybody up, man. And we can talk about this
Oh, yeah.
all night long because this is that important. But I know we got families, and we got the Joint Council 53 conference starting tomorrow, and I'll be down there tomorrow, so we can hear what the Joint Council has to say. I'm looking forward to that. But again, we have to make sure that our members get to the poll. We have to engage them on things that are important to them. And again, they may not want to hear it, but it's important to our survival to make them hear it. Hey, man, your pension, your rights to collectively bargain, the pro-labor National Labor Relations Board, the right to strike, right to work legislation, all of these things impact and affect our union way of life. And don't think your employer wants you to have any of those things, nor does Trump.
No, that's Trump. That's right.
It's just that simple. So your love for fighting the employer should be more than your love for Donald Trump. It should be.
Yeah, but let me just one thing, because we talk about Biden walking that picket line.
Yeah.
When the UFCW was trying to organize Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama, the president on national TV,
yes, he did. I know you're talking about.
Said your best. They didn't vote for the union, but he promoted the idea that those workers' best interest laid in joining a union. So not only did he walk a picket line, he promoted the idea of that the worker needed to have a union if the worker was going to have a better way of life. And I don't think we have seen that in the history of this country ever.
Right. And then look at what has happened with his NLRB, with the Amazon decisions that just happened. Yeah. That does not happen under Trump.
No, it does
not happen.
It does not.
Ordering, Starbucks to do the right thing for those workers.
That's right.
That does not happen under Trump. It doesn't happen. Yeah. And these are the things that we need to tell our members constantly. Hey, whatever you feel about Trump, it's not going to benefit you or your family. It's not. Brother Fontaine, I know you have something to say before we roll out.
Man, I just wanted to say, as part of being a UPSer, you can kind of relate to this. I'm seeing the slight volume increases, and we're getting ready to amp up, peak season hiring. And, one of the responsibilities as a shop steward is we get to give orientation to our newcomers and everything. And, man, I'm just amazed of the lack of non-knowledge that some of these people that I come across, man. It's more the younger people that don't know anything about the unions and never been in a union, and then they get the question like, what is a union? So I kind of, at first I was appalled, like, how do you not know about a union? But I sat back and I looked at it like, I would rather have their minds fresh. So when I put it in their head, it's fresh. It ain't nothing negative. It's positive things in its nature. And I've tried to lay down the foundation, especially going into this election, of how things can change. And, once I grab them, they start soaking the information up like a sponge. And now I get them, meet me at my car in the parking lot, asking me, what I'm saying, giving them, yeah, you read that union book I gave you, man, that's important that you vote, because you might not get one of them, when that date, August 1st comes, So that's one of the things I just want to put out there for our shop stewards, man. We got a little bit over a month. We got to put these boots to the ground.
Yeah.
And get it in there. So yeah, I'm down with meeting, going forward, once a week.
Yeah, October, the first Sunday in October, we're gonna meet, and we're gonna meet every Sunday until this election, because we got to get our people to the polls, man. I can guarantee you this: the CEO is gonna get their people to the polls.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, they're gonna get their people to the polls, so we got to get our people to the polls.
And they could beat us with money, right?
They can
outspend us, but they can't outvote us.
That's it. They can't outvote us.
They don't have the votes. We got the votes.
That's right.
We just got to corral those votes and get them in the right direction. But I just
I,
Chris, you just
say one thing, man.
you just made my next T-shirt, Chris. You can
I was
outspin
actually
it.
going to
You can
say
outvote
we
it.
actually had a T-shirt a couple years ago here in my local that we had made. It was to UPS. You may have the money, but we have the power. And I still got that shirt upstairs. And to right, Chris, these CEOs got the money,
Yeah.
but they can't outvote us. They can't.
Elon Musk has 200 billion, but he only got one vote.
That's it. That's it.
You got
That
$20. You got
makes
one
it
vote.
Right. You're
easy
right.
clean.
They can't outrun us, right?
That's right.
And that's why, when Ron Kerr was general president, I had approached them about doing this internal organizing and that we needed to, for what Brother Don had spoken about, the fact that they're taking this information out of the schools and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And that we need to be in a process of permanently educating our members to increase the level of consciousness, right? And I mean, they wanted me to give up my local to come and do it. I told them, I said, you don't lost your mind, but it's something that's necessary to teach the members because no one else does. And I'm going to do some things between now and next week to see if I can find someone to come and because we need to have maybe you could get on your side, Rich, because you kind of like to come and talk about civics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Registering to vote and getting out of
Yep.
have you and just see if we could reach some people and just over that month, man, just keep beating that.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll try to get somebody
APRI got people, man.
yeah, I can get somebody from the AFL, one
Yeah.
of our members. They're doing a program now
Okay, good.
about getting folks to vote. So I can get one of them and they can come on here and just talk to our members about civics and what does inflation mean? What does, this bill mean? What does the judiciary part of the government do? What does the executive branch do? I mean, all this stuff. So people have a better understanding of what they're voting for when they go in these booths.
And the role of the Federal Reserve and all of that.
Yeah.
Right. And I got a guy that could come and talk about them economics.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some people, man. Your brother from Stuck Nation, brother Bob Henley.
Okay.
Bob Henley to come on and have a discussion about, that discussion. Give him a half hour to sit in and
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
I'll talk to Bob and get him lined up.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. All right. Well, it was good to have everybody on here. Again,
Thank
talk to
you
your
all for being
coworkers,
here. All right.
talk to your members.
Beat the drums.
Yeah, we got 4 or 5 weeks left.
Yeah.
We don't have time to play around and just again, don't let the conversation go left or right. Keep it about union issues,
down the
man,
middle.
because people got to understand your union, your rights to collectively bargain,
Yep.
your right to strike, right to work legislation, pro-labor, National Labor Relations Board. All this stuff is on the ballot.
Yep.
And all that stuff is what we need. So
Yep.
please, right? Keep it about that. Keep the main thing the main thing.
That's
All
right.
right. So,
All
right, Dr. Don, Dr. Cooper, I'll see y'all
All right.
probably tomorrow morning. And
Okay.
everybody, you guys have a good evening.
Okay.
All right, man.
Good night.
Yeah, brother.
All right.
All right, now.
Good
You're
night.
welcome.
Take care, brothers and
night.
sisters. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.